So today I'm reviewing Stonewielder by Ian C Esslemont. It's the third book in the a novel of the novels of the Malazan Empire, and before that it has been Knight of Knives, and it has been the Return of the Crimson Guard, which is also reviewed here on the channel. Um, I want to frame this discussion and reflection video on the book with a thought. Uh, what happens when a land is governed by a religious cult and the invading forces attacks? Um, Two invading forces. We have Malasans and we have Storm Riders. Who is the invader, and what does the existence of a authoritarian cult in combination with invaders do with people? I think that is some interesting things that Stonewielder raises. It also raises the question on religion itself, whom to believe, whom should we trust, who are the good and the bad ones. When you read Malasan Book of the Fallen, you can read it from so many different lenses. And my lens is usually this kind of philosophical, spiritual lens. It's a political lens as well, and so on. You can read it just for entertainment. I want to continue with just reading the plot, and I will do that by using the description on the back of the book for you. And it says like this. Grey Man believed he'd outrun his past. With his school for swordsmanship in Falar, he was looking forward to a more settled existence, although his colleague Kyle wasn't quite so enamored of life outside the Crimson Guard. However, it is not so easy for an ex-fist of the Malazan Empire to disappear, especially one declared a traitor. For the new emperor is dwelling on the ignominy of the disastrous invasion of the Coral subcontinent. In the vaults beneath the imperial capital lie the answers, and out of this buried history surfaces a single name, Stonewielder. In Coral, Lord Protector Chaim faces the potential annihilation of all that he holds dear. With a few remaining men and a stone wall that has seen better days, he confronts an ancient foe. The Storm Riders have returned, and the cult of the Blessed Lady, which had stood firm for millennia against the sea-born enemy, now threatens religious war instead. While chaos looms, a local magistrate investigates a series of murders, only to find he's at the heart of a far more ancient and terrifying crime. So, as you can see, there are a lot of things going on, and that's usual for a Malasan book. So we on one hand has the story with Grey Man and Kyle, and the you could say the spin-off to the stories in especially the Return of the Crimson Guard. This has to do with the Crimson Guard in a very clear way when you read the book. You also have this perspective that the Malazan Empire wants to invade the continent, which is here called Corelri, which I will very soon speak more about. And you also have a protector here called Chaim, and he is a storm guard, and he protects the Corelri from invading forces called Storm Riders. We don't know really what that is. Basically, we could say it's waves with mysterious people in the waves, but this is an ongoing attack against Corelli. I think it has gone on for many years, maybe centuries. And there is a storm wall, a huge wall, which is very interesting. I think that's one of the main components and my main rewards to read about storm wall and how it's used to protect the Corelli from invaders. And then we have the lady of the cult, which is described in the introduction to the book, which I just read. So the book explores the cult of the lady and the implications of that for the Corelri population. Corelri is an island kingdom, or it's not a kingdom, but an island region, also called Land of Fists. I will do like this, but luckily it's a very sunny today in Sweden, but that also means that maybe you have trouble seeing this. I'm not sure. So you see, it's a lot of islands, not an archipelago, but it's almost like that. If we relate it to my earlier videos, a bit of a dead fire feeling here from Pillars of Eternity, for example. So it's about Corelri, and it's about Malasans invading this region for the second time. And this is in the south of on the Malasan globe, as I understand it. Maybe you have another understanding of it. There are other invaders as well, Malasans, and there are storm riders. And as I said, they are being fought against by some group or a faction called the Storm Guard. Stonewielder focuses on this conflict that comes from different sides, and at the same time, in Corelri, there are strange, I think, murders going on. So we follow an assessor called Bakuna. That's an interesting take by Ian C Esslemont, because I think he, with this book, finds his own writing style and his own voice and his own tone much better than the previous two books. And he adds more things that makes this a little more of a horror and a little more of a detective, mysterious crime book. You take it for what it is, and it's minor. It's a minor theme, but I think he adds a lot of layers into the Malasan world that I have not seen before, especially new kinds of characters. You can almost say that when you have read so much Malasan books, as maybe you have done and I have done, you start to see Malasan tropes. And I think he deviates from that, and he's not using the soldier trope as much as he's done before. Or we have the mage trope, for example. I think Erickson and Ian C, they have created their own tropes, which is anti-trope compared to traditional fantasy. We are all independent in the beginning, or indie in the beginning, right? And then we become mainstream. So maybe this is kind of, I've read so much, and now this is my mainstream fantasy. And as I said, Stonewielder focuses on war, and it focuses on war on different levels. On the structural level, between gods and empires and so on, regional, geographical, political conflicts, that's one level. Then you have the implications for the society, I think, in Stonewielder. What happens for the local population collectively when they are being pushed and pressed and questioned so much, the society and the country itself, what happens. And then you have the individual level. That's nothing new in a Malasan book, but if you haven't read the Malasan book, I think that might be new for you, and it's a good thing to read about. If you are in a war, I hope not, of course, how would you perceive it, or how would you imagine it? You can experience that from all those different characters in here. And when it comes to characters, we follow, as always, many different characters. I assume you have read Knight of Knives or read Return of the Crimson Guard. If not, I don't think this is so much of a spoiler for you anyway, because you would maybe probably start with Malasan Book of the Fallen and then end with Ian C Esslemont's book. But we have Greyman, as mentioned earlier. We also have Kyle. Kyle is a member of the Crimson Guard. He appears in the second book, Return of the Crimson Guard, and he gets initiated in the Return of the Crimson Guard. And he is one of the central characters. I'm very curious to follow him, if we are allowed to do that in the coming books by Ian C Esslemont. Is kind of, I don't know if it's a hero's journey or not, but it feels like that. And I really enjoy Kyle because he's very committed to the cause, and but he also reflects a lot for himself, as people do in on Earth and in Malasan as well. Yeah, we have Greymane. Greymane is an outlawed Malasan fist, and he has a central role in the return of the Crimson Guard, and he goes to Corelry to relax. He thinks, but that doesn't happen. He gets involved in the war. I won't spoil that for you, but he has a central role in the war, and he's extremely central to the book. I won't say no more because that would spoil everything, I suppose, in the book. So keep an eye on Greymane if you read the book. Then we have Sooth. He's a Malasan soldier, and he could follow his perspective. He's both funny and he has this. It's not the birth view, because then they have view overall view. He has a frog view. At least we say that in Sweden. He has the root perspective. He sees the thing from the common people. I think that's a strong storyline with Sooth. And then we have Devaleth. She's a mage, part of the Malasan group. And then we have Ivanra, Army of the Reform. He's part of Army of the Reform, and he's kind of an independent character. And since the Malasan invade, there are already Malasans in Corellia, I must have to say as well. There has been troop existences there before, and so on. So that's an interesting part too. All new Malasan soldiers arrive, and then you already have Malasan soldiers on the island as well. There are many plot lines, as you hear, and many point of view characters. I think this is rewarding. I hope this is a setup book for what to come, because there are many books after Stonewielder, and especially rewarding for me as a lore guy is that we learn more about Malasan lore. And I think it's really great that this book is tied together and connected to Malasan Book of the Fallen in a way that is obvious. If you read it parallel, which I'm doing now, I'm into Bone Hunters, and many of you know, in the Malasan Book of the Fallen, and surprisingly, I started to see parallels when I read this book to Bone Hunters. Its characters, its lore, its places, and so on. References to different places. I think this is very skillfully done, and it makes me hopeful that more and more people will discover Ian C, since many people first discover Stephen E. Erickson. When it comes to lore, there are a few things that Ian C explains to us, and that is the lady, of course, the lady of the cult on Corelry. And then we have the Warrants, of course, this magical system, which is also described here on the channel in another video. I recommend you to watch that if you haven't done that. Warrants can be so many things. It can actually be actual magic when you heal people. Warrants can be a place which you travel through. The Warren itself can be an own world, and so on. The Warrants can be many things. And Ian C Esslemont, he describes the feeling of Warrants much more than Stephen Erickson does. And I think that's great. And I think that's given added layer, an added dimension. So if this book had no name, or if this series had not the name that it has, it could be called, I suppose, the Book of Warrants, because the Warrants are so central, always in Malazan Book of the Fallen, but it's described in such a diverse way. That adds a lot to us readers when we try to decode and understand the Malasan world. Here is also the crippled god involved or mentioned at least. Very rewarding to see. When I read the first two books of the novels in the Malazan Empire, I wasn't sure if this was just spin-off. Obviously not. And of course, we learn a lot about Crimson Guard. Crimson Guard is a cool group. They are sworn enemies to the Malazan Empire, and they also have immortality. I have to say that the ending is great. It's a really good ending. It's good writing, good battle scenes. Good. He ties everything together. I think at least the things he wants to. I suppose it will be tied together later. In my interview with Ian C, he was very firm on that he wants to finish things. So I hope the loose threads will be finished too. Loose threads. And I think his writing has improved a lot since the first two books. With that said, it means that the writing is more consistent. He has found his tone more. I think the character descriptions are good. I think the magic, as always, is good described as he's used to do. And I also think that the atmosphere, nature and everything is well described in the book. It adds a layer of immersion. Some people want to compare Erickson and Ian C Esslemont. I don't do that because I appreciate them both. And I really avoid comparing them because I think there are two voices to describe the Malasan world, and it's Stephen Erickson and it's Ian C Esslemont. And we have to understand that, and we have to respect that to really enjoy the books. Actually, it goes both ways, because if you start to read Ian C Esslemont and maybe you start to read Dance's Lament or The Path of Ascendancy, which is part of the Path of Ascendancy series, and you go to Erickson, you will find a kind of adjustment to Erickson's style. So Erickson was first, so that's why Ian C Esslemont usually is compared as you compare him in relation to Stephen Erickson, but you can do the other way around. But for me, I rather not compare them. I think they have both built this world together, obviously, and Ian C Esslemont has a huge contribution to the world and the lore itself. So they are interconnected, and you cannot really separate them, I think. To summarize it, this was the best book of the three books so far by Ian C Esslemont in the novels of the Malazan Empire. As I said, the story is tight, it's well connected, there are interesting characters, you learn a lot about lore, you get a lot of philosophical inputs and inspiration when it comes to war, I would say. And it ties well into the other Malasan Book of the Fallen books. And as I said, I read the main 10 books parallel with Ian C Esslemont, and that is a very rewarding thing to do. A third time, if I do that, I would like to read. Now I'm reading them in publication order, so more or less. Next time I want to read them as they go by, because as they are chronologically, because Night of Knives is before Gardens of the Moon, and the other two books now is later in the series in relation to Stephen Erickson's book. So that would be a really good thing to do, but everything has to do about time management, and you have to work, and you have a family life as well. So maybe I will be doing this until I will do this maybe 10 to 20 years more to be able to do that. I don't know. So if you've read the book, of course, what were your thoughts, and do you have comments on my review as well? So this was a good review and a lot of reflections, and I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, have a good day. I hope you have just as sunny day as I have here in Sweden. So Take care and bye.